Welcome back to The Real Story. My next guest is also no stranger to tragedy, but he's been able to channel grief into change. Mike Song lost his son Ethan here to a gun accident in 2018 while Ethan was playing at a friend's house in Guilford. Mike, really appreciate you coming in. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Mike, I had the privilege to meet you and your wife, Kristen, several times over the years. But for those who may not know you, who may not know Ethan's story, can you tell us a little bit about Ethan and what happened back in 2018?
Well, we were an all-in family, and Ethan was just a fun kid. I traveled with him. He liked to travel, so I traveled for business. He'd like to come along. We were road buddies, and we were food buddies, and I coached him in lacrosse and baseball and, all those dad things. So when he got his braces off, we were all thinking it's going to be kind of a fun night to go home and celebrate because he hated his braces. And that was about, 10 a.m. in the morning, and my wife texted me a picture of Ethan. And then the next text I got from her said 911. And then from there, we just went into what we call the abyss. When this happens to you, and I hope it never happens to anyone, they ask you to come to the hospital that he's at. And they don't tell you because they feel like that's just going to be too unbearable. And when you get there and they tell you, three things happen. You feel like the whole room shatters into tiny pieces because it's your whole life, all those memories, it's shattering. And your heart's also being simultaneously. You feel like this ripping sensation in your heart all those times. And then you feel like you kind of fall into this endless pit. It's like these three things happen all at once. And in thinking back on it, it was just so overwhelmed in that moment. And difficult.
So Ethan was playing with a firearm at a friend's house. His story is so compelling to so many that it led to a new state law here in Connecticut. I was there at the Capitol the evening that it happened, saw you and Kristen, the emotion that was in your eyes. So rarely have we seen that kind of bipartisan support where Democrats and Republicans came together and voted this through. Take me back to that night, and what does Ethan's law do?
Well, that night was very important for the entire state, but also for the entire country, because wherever we go, we hear this over and over again. Wow, Connecticut did it right. They put politics aside. They said, look, when there's kids around, let's lock guns down. Who can argue with that? And so the beauty of what happened there that night was that Vin Candelora, Republican, got together with Sean Scanlon and Democrat and lots of gun violence prevention folks, and they just hammered this out. Like all great people should do. All great Americans have hammered things out. They've gone in, they've made compromises. That's why I love Connecticut. And that's why I'm so passionate about spreading that bipartisanship to the whole country. Because I think we can get it back. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, I always like to say this, every person has this emblazoned on their heart. We're all Americans. We all care about our kids. And Ethan's law doesn't take anyone's gun away. In fact, it might even help you hold on to it because guns get stolen quite frequently. So we think that this is what it's all about right here.
Well said. Everybody bleeds the same color.
Yeah, totally.
Mike, Ethan's law is now part of a federal package of gun laws that the House is now considering. It's called the Protect Our Kids Act. Your wife told me that when she heard that was going to be part of this package, that she went running straight to the cemetery to tell Ethan. When you heard about it, what were you thinking, and what do you think the prospects of success are? This is going to be voted on now federally.
Yeah, I yelled, screamed pretty loud. I was really happy because I know that it's still a rough road to get this into a bill, but we know that the House is likely to pass it because of Kristen, and she has a dream team of people, Poe Murray and a whole bunch of people. They formed this dream team. I was a small part of it, and we just lobbied probably 300-400 legislators and their staffs nonstop for 2 years, and that's why it got on that list. It was really an American story because, that's what it should be like. You believe in something, you have a mission, then you go pound the pavement till your feet literally feel like they're falling off your body. And we would come back with blisters on our feet, riding the train back up to Connecticut, but it felt good because that's what this country's about. So, yeah, I was elated to hear that. As elated as you can be to have your son who has died name on a law, but I was happy that his legacy goes on.
And we're talking about safe storage here of a firearm. So specifically, what does that mean? What does Ethan's law do?
It's really simple. If there's kids around, you should lock guns down or secure them in a way that no one reasonably would think a child could get to them, and then you're fine. And that's what every gun owner that I know does. It's that rare exception of the person who says, oh, my kids are here, my gun's over there in a cardboard box. And unfortunately, there are people like that. There are people still here in Connecticut, although there's less because of Ethan's law. But across the country, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of homes like that. And just think about it from the selfish point of view, I always say to parents, you know, because parents will always say, well, I lock my guns down. I say, but do your kids stay in your house 24/7? Do you know where they are all the time? Look, this is what happens. Your kids go and play. And there is no clue that, you know, no matter what we did, we would never have discovered this. And that was the tragedy of our loss.
And you were telling me you even met with President Biden in the Oval Office to discuss this. What did he say to you?
It was really amazing. He was rolling out the ghost gun executive order, which I back. And suddenly we were told we were going in to see the president. You go into the Roosevelt room, and then they usher you in there. And, you know, contrary to some people's beliefs, he was very lucid, and he knew the law really well. And he said, look, this is just very simple. We buckle our kids' seatbelts, you know. It seemed like a little bit of an inconvenience at the time when they first started, you know. But we click it or ticket. And I said that's all we ever wanted, was just to say, kids around, lock guns down. No kids, you know, do your thing. But when there's kids in your home, for goodness sake, they could be depressed. They could just be playful and curious, as kids are. And you know what? When I was a kid, I did some dumb things. But with a gun, it's one and done. You know, so he really knew that pain that we had because he had lost you know what it was like to lose a child. And that's you know, it's a club nobody wants to be in, but the people who are in the club, you can just look them in the eye and you see it, you know, the pain they feel.
Mike, gun reform is obviously a very hotly debated issue. Do you see it as a political issue, or is it really a moral issue?
I see it as a moral issue. I think it's a really great question. It's a great way to frame it. You know, it's a do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. And for me, I would want parents whose children come to my home to know that they were as safe as possible. So I would expect that standard from any parent out there. I think that it's been made into a political issue. But I really would love people to step back from it and just say, what is Mike saying? Like, Mike has friends who have guns. Mike loves his sportsmen. I go fishing for striped bass in Long Island Sound. I love the outdoors. I don't want to infringe on anybody's right to own a gun, but I want to keep kids safe really badly. I really have to have that mission, because when you lose a child, you sort of adopt everyone else's child because you feel like you just don't want that kid to ever know in that flash that their life is over, and then what their parents and their family go through.
You know, when the issue of gun reform comes up, we often hear about background checks on gun purchases, but I know you feel very strongly that there also needs to be a background check when it comes to purchasing ammunition. Can you talk about that?
You know that, huh? Yeah, I do, because my friend Fred Gutenberg, his daughter Jamie, was murdered in the Parkland massacre, and he's become one of my heroes because that was 14 days after Ethan died, along with David Hogg, who's become a really good friend. So, yes, because every time you see or hear one of these stories, it's like this young person was able to acquire 500, 600, 700 rounds of ammunition and a semi-automatic weapon. And I think that I would really love to see that. Maybe just present your identification so they know who you are. Why is this person amassing thousands of rounds of ammunition? I think that's a very fair thing to ask, and a very small inconvenience to say, hey, you know, this might stop a Uvalde or a Sandy Hook or a Parkland from happening. And so I think it's a really good idea. Jamie's law and Ethan's law, I always think of Jamie and Ethan up there in heaven, you know, looking down at us and saying, hey, parents, do the right thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about technology, if we could, for a second. You know, can we make guns safer, I think, is a legitimate question. The first fingerprint scanners in phones came out in 2004. Since then, that technology has been mainstreamed. It's pretty much standard on all phones and handsets now. Can we deploy something that's different? Can we modify a gun so it only unlocks when it's supposed to with someone's biometrics? I mean, what kind of technology is out there?
You know, I'm sure that Steve Jobs is looking down from heaven going, yeah, we can do that, you know. Absolutely. I teach technology for a living. Technology is amazing what it's doing right now, and we could absolutely have a win-win. Hey, gun owners, let's upgrade the technology of the guns. It won't fire if that's your child pointing at their head because they feel suicidal. 1 hour of their life they might feel suicidal, and that gun, that family gun, is what they use. That's the most deadliest thing they can use. The other thing that I think is really important to talk about is that the safe smart guns are coming. But the safes, the smart safes are here. You can open them at the speed of a smartphone. And Ethan's Law has a provision for funds. And I really want to throw this out there to everybody out there who's a gun owner who says, well, I don't want to go buy a gun safe. Ethan's Law, I believe, could be used to give out 1 million free gun safes to 1 million gun owners. And why would anyone, the GOP or the Democrats or the Republicans or the NRA or the NSSF, why would we stand in the way of that? Let's give away a benefit to show that it's not about taking away. It's about giving. It's about giving life. It's about the liberty. It's about the pursuit of happiness. It's about parent to parent. That's what it is. Dad to dad. You know, that's all I am as a dad, sad dad. But I want to turn that sadness into something positive. But I'd love to see those safes go out because it's fun to see the expression on their faces.
Mike, we have less than a minute left. I want to end on this. Obviously, grief is not a straight line. People grieve in many different ways. Do you have any advice for those families from Buffalo, from Uvalde, for all of the mass shootings we've seen? Is there anything that can help them?
Well, I definitely do. I think that there's moments that you can't control. Your own grief. One, for the families, like you said, everyone grieves differently, and I didn't quite understand that initially. You have to let people have their track in your family because they've got to express that grief differently. So that's a very important one. The next one is find a positive path. There is a positive path for you to find. You won't be as happy, but you may find meaning in your life. And that meaning, the meaning that you have, meaningful feeling that you have when you help another human being is the happiness. It's the only way to fill that void. I think that's really important. And I would just want to say this. If you know somebody who loses somebody like I did, one of the nicest things that you can say to them is this. Whenever you're ready, I want to be with you and hang out with you, and I want you to be you. If you're sad, if you're mad, if you're frustrated, don't worry. I just want to be here with you because I love you. You're my friend. And then say the name of that person, that spouse, husband, wife, child. Say that person's name. What were they? What was Ethan like? What did he like to do? You actually did that, and it felt really good to bring him to life through this conversation. So you just gave me a gift today that is priceless to me.
Important conversation to have. Mike Song, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And thank you for joining us on The Real Story. Remember, if you want to watch all our interviews in full, just log on to our website, fox61.com, or download our free Fox 61 News app. Have a great day.